What is good, Tesla family? It's Ray J back with another video, and in this one I'm going to be talking about the one and only Tesla stock, what you should be looking out for the future, and what the data is showing for Tesla going forward. I'm also going to give you guys my price prediction for tomorrow, talk about how the market may affect Tesla, and also what Elon Musk, the man, the myth, the legend, Elon Musk put on his Twitter page, which is good news for Tesla. Now, before I break anything down, before I get into any more details, I do have to mention a couple of things before starting. Firstly, I'm not a financial planner, so don't take any of this as financial advice whatsoever. And also, if you guys can, please smash the like button if you want to see more videos like this. It not only benefits me, it benefits the entire Tesla community as a whole. And the last things, if you guys can, please check out the Webull link down below and in the description. If you sign up for Webull, the link down below, and deposit any amount of money into the account, you're guaranteed up to 12 free stocks, each worth up to $2,000. And the best part is, any of these 12 free stocks could be a free Tesla share, a free NEO share, or a mix of all of them. It's a limited time offer. The offer ends in just 11 days. Check it out before they run out. With that out of the way, let's get on with the video. Looking at Tesla, this thing is down about 7% for the day, or almost 7%. And overall, guys, we did see Tesla take a big hit today as earnings was not as great as many people would have anticipated. So as a quick recap, if you guys don't remember, EPS was okay for Tesla. Earnings per share did all right. But overall, the higher costs, the overall effect that's happening to the market did actually cause their margins to get adjusted. And we also started to see the revenue actually miss on expectations. So because of this, we did see Tesla actually react kind of like negatively to this. Elon Musk did actually help people out by actually mentioning that Tesla's long-term future is still going to be very bright, and Tesla could break another record when it comes to their overall production again. But it was also noted that for Q4, Tesla's production and deliveries may have a big difference between them. So considering that's like what's going on, considering the fact that a lot of people are not buying as many cars and Tesla's backlog of orders is actually shrinking a bit, this is a big sign right now that the overall economy and the economic effects that are really starting to take toll on these companies are causing the Fed to be more hawkish, and the changes by the Fed are now starting to affect earnings for many companies around the world. And this is now starting to affect Tesla, and we may see this happen again as we approach like Q4 and Q1 of 2023. So please be ready for all investors, because the earnings recession is not the best of times. Now, it's important to note something else that's very important. Looking at some seasonal patterns for the S&P 500, the market has a tendency of actually following these trends. And if you watch the current market, at least for like the second half of this year, it's pretty obvious that we had a tendency of following the red line right here, the big drop around like that June area, followed by a big push around August, another big drop in September, a small relief rally approaching October. So it's very similar to what we have already seen. And what this is showing is there might be the next big drop approaching the month of November. So it doesn't have to be exactly perfect, but it is very possible that the market's getting ready to make new lows again and take another big hit. But I do believe that earnings are going to be very kind of like effective in when it comes to how this ends up happening. We also have a big FOMC meeting coming up in the very beginning of November, which could have another big effect on how the markets move. So it's very important to be very prepared for all these changes. In China, we did see the government actually doubling down on these like lockdowns because they really want to bring down the virus cases and so on and so forth. So all these things are having a negative effect on the overall global stage and the economy. For Tesla in particular, I noticed that Max Payne's at about 240, so this does incentivize market makers to push the share price of Tesla up a bit. However, considering the current price action, which I'm going to talk about for like the SPY, the NASDAQ, the QQQs as well, alongside Tesla a little bit later, it's going to be a little bit tricky to actually get this high, but it is possible for us to get a small bounce, at least temporarily. Now, looking at the price comparison, it's important to note that the overall market clearly affects the way Tesla moves. You guys can see how SPY, Tesla are very connected, not to mention like QQQs, the NASDAQ, and so on. And then looking at the price price ratio, this was pushing up just a little bit. There's a tiny little pop right here as we approached earnings. But after that, guys, it doesn't look as good. I think this is going to continue to come down because Tesla is showing some relative weakness for the short term. Now, one good thing, though, that's important to mention is the fact that analysts have given Tesla some more buy ratings. RBC Capital is saying Tesla is going to outperform. They're doing very well long term. And once again, that's a good sign for us going forward. Now, it is also important to note that on Fridays, 47% of the time Tesla has been green this year. So Tesla tends to be red on those Fridays. However, we are kind of oversold, so it could be a little bit different. And the last thing I wanted to talk about is down here, guys. Something crazy is going on. the short interest of Tesla ever since we entered the month of October has been going to the absolute roof, which means the shorts are piling in. They're trying to bring this thing down. We are starting to see the effects of this on this stock. Now, despite everything that's going on, let me just quickly go over what Elon Musk said, then talk about technicals. Right here, it was noted that Tesla shares recorded a record amount of growth in solar and energy deployments in Q3. So this is a massive sector in Tesla. And historically, during Q4, the demand for energy tends to go up. So I do anticipate this is going to be strong as well. And Elon Musk responded by saying, accelerating sustainable energy is our primary mission. So Elon Musk is very optimistic for the long term. He is still very bullish, guys, and he does believe Tesla will prevail. So don't let all the naysayers really get into your heads. Tesla has a new robot that's coming out. They're still working on the development phases of it, but it still has many strong functionalities, and Musk did give very big reports about the semi-truck too. So the semi-truck is coming out very soon, in my opinion. They're working on the production phase right now, so they're still developing that part, and right now it's getting closer than ever before, so that's a very good sign for Tesla. So there are some very good things coming up, not to mention if the Roadster and the Cybertruck also coming out very soon. It's going to be incredible, guys. Don't let this short term drop that we're seeing really get into your head. The long term is still very bright, as Elon Musk is letting everyone know. He did mention those things for yesterday too. So now for Tesla, what on earth is going on with the share price? Well, we had this big gap right here. We had a small bounce because the overall market is kind of influencing the way Tesla moves. But then after that, we started to come down, and we are showing some signs of weakness. Now, overall, guys, I would say I'm a little bit more bearish than bullish over the next couple of weeks, but sometimes the market could surprise us, at least for the short term. But the trend right here is very obvious. Tesla was very close to 300 many weeks ago. Then we hit the 250s. Then we started shopping around that 226 zone, followed by 220, and after that we were just coming down again and again, making new lows. So overall, guys, we are looking more bearish than bullish, but for the short term we could actually get a temporary bounce to fill this gap first before we end up continuing to the downside, because we have lots of chomp between this I would say it's around 218 to 222 zone. We have lots of chomp right there, lots of volume right there, so we could end up re-entering that zone first before we continue to come down. But if that's not the case, guys, downside seems still more likely in the overall future. Now, looking at Tesla from a 2-hour perspective on the charts, we could see Tesla entered very close to that oversold territory. This thing just continued to get plummeted to the downside after this earnings. And what's interesting about this, though, is if you look at this very carefully on the 2-hour, we do have some bullish divergence, which could be a slight sign of Tesla pushing up a bit to fill this gap. But then after that, I'm just not as confident in Tesla really continuing to rally really hard over the next couple of weeks. It looks more like the markets are getting ready for some potential downside. And the reason I say that is because when you look at SPY, if you look at the whole market collectively, we're seeing very similar things. SPY is continuing to respect the downtrend. Overall, it's just barely holding support, showing lots of chomp. Now, the two main possibilities I see for SPY and the overall market would be this right here. If you look down here, we have this big gap on SPY, and this gap could get filled if this thing doesn't hold that 364 level. So if SPY comes down, this is likely going to be correlated with the QQQs and the Nasdaqs coming down. That could be not the best for Tesla. Now, what tends to happen in the market, though, is we get these big pops into the open like this. Then we kind of touch this trend line. Then we get a big kind of drop after that. So that is what could end up happening for tomorrow. That's what happened to SPY, also the Nasdaq and the QQQs. Looking at Apple, we're seeing some relative strength compared to the overall market, but so far it's just barely holding. It does look like we could end up coming down too if we break below 142, 140, followed by this gap fill zone all the way down below the 140 level. So right now the markets look like they're on the edge. Nasdaq, same thing. The Nasdaq is kind of holding the zone. We failed to fill the gap around that 11,000 zone, and since then we're continuing to downtrend. We could end up filling the gap there if we get a big break below 10,500, but until then I do anticipate a small pop followed by another big rejection for the QQQ. Same exact thing, essentially. If this thing pushes up a bit, it's very possible for us to retest this chop zone around 272. But if we don't hold that, if we start to downtrend, if we break below 266, we have the potential to actually break down, fill this gap down, and come all the way down to that 261 level. So everything's looking like it could pop a bit, but then after the small pop, more downside seems very imminent, and I do believe this is going to transcend itself into Tesla. So there are two main possibilities that I am seeing. If you look at this zone I highlighted for Tesla, 202 to 200 seems like a very key zone. You can see Tesla actually just touched this, got a big bounce off this, but this is very similar to that time when Tesla touched that like 206 level, which we eventually broke out of. Now, Tesla is kind of oversold, at least for the short term, so what tends to happen is we could get some temporary relief. However, I would not get too excited looking at the relief, guys. This thing does like to move very hard. I wouldn't be surprised if this thing tries to go for the gap fill or it comes very close to doing that, pushing all the way up to like 220 temporarily. But if that's not the case, it could happen like sometime next week. Now, if we do end up hitting 220, I would not necessarily just YOLO into calls. I'd be very careful because that could be the ultimate like fake out before the market makes a big reversal and then Tesla ends up dropping all the way back down to 202 to 200. And if we don't hold that, guys, this thing could easily, in my opinion, considering the market could drop pretty hard, Tesla could easily fall below 200 over the next couple of weeks. It's very possible given the current trend. So what am I anticipating for tomorrow? You have to watch support and resistance levels. All right, so let me just draw this out. The most likely possibility would be we get a small pop into open. How high will we go? It's a little bit hard to tell since we did get rejected very close to that 215 resistance level. I'm thinking that we're either going to get a big pop into open like this, and we could retest 215. All right. Now we have to see if this thing breaks 215. If we break above 215 and Tesla shows some nice signs of volume, we have the potential to actually fill this gap up here quickly. It might just happen in like one quick move over the next like couple of the first hours for tomorrow, fill the gap, get a big rejection off that, then start coming down again. Now this could also happen going to like next week if this thing does not get enough volume. So it is very possible, but a more bearish possibility would be kind of like a repeat of what we saw today. So another like more bearish possibility would be Tesla pushing up like this. I'm going to like change the color in 1 second, but we could get a rejection off 215 depending on how the market performs. All right, so either one of these are very possible, but I'm not counting on us just like exploding to the absolute moon. If we do make it to 220, I anticipate if we do fill the gap first, right, 220, I do anticipate us getting a rejection, guys. So watch that very carefully. If not, if we can't even get there, we might just get rejected and kind of like shop for the remainder of the day, get another big drop into the close, and continue to come down to this level. It is also possible that if we don't hold 205, for Tesla to actually retest this zone right here around that 202 to 210, 202 to 200 flat level. So watch that very carefully, guys. Very possible. I'm not counting on that happening just yet. I think we are kind of oversold, or we're very like close to being oversold. So watch this very, very carefully. For resistance levels, if this thing pushes up, 211 is going to be a key resistance level because we've been like holding that for so long. We've seen so much action right over there, so many bounces and rejection levels. 211 is very key, followed by 215. We got rejected off there today. Break above that, then we have the potential to go about to 220 a share. And if we can't hold 220, right, if we do end up coming down all these levels, it could also become support zones. Tesla has support right now at 205. I want to see this thing hold 205 tomorrow. If we break below 205, we have the potential to come down to either 202 or 200 flat. That's a very key zone right here, because if we break below 200, this thing's going to have a lot of room to come down, and we could see a lot of panic start to set in because lots of investors, their psychological levels may shift, sentiment may become more fearful, and some more investors may start to capitulate if this thing does break below 200. So be very careful. Anyways, guys, remember to read your charts, remain calm, cool, and collected, do what you have to do, and I will most definitely see you guys in the next video. Tesla to the moon, because the long-term future is still incredibly bright, and peace out.